All right. Welcome, friends. Welcome, YouTube viewers. It is Summer Stride and our final nature boost with our amazing partners. And we just cannot say enough about them. And they will be back. We have something scheduled, a nature boost scheduled for October. So stick around, pay attention to our calendar, and you'll find out what it is. It's going to be fun. Uh, if you're not busy later today, come back for a Spanish language craft program, and you will learn all about monoprinting. And this is at 2 p.m. and by the amazing artist Calixto Robles. And it will be in Spanish. And it's a great class, and he is a great artist. So don't miss this one. And he will also be back. Oops, I got those backwards. So this Friday and next Friday, 2 p.m. Today is 3 reduction printing. So it will be fun still. And like I said, this is part of our Summer Stride programming. And Summer Stride is not just for kids, it's for all ages. So do your 20 hours reading and get that amazing iconic tote bag there with the art by Kaylani Juanita. We want to welcome you to the unceded land of the Ohlone tribal people and acknowledge the many Ramaytush Ohlone tribal groups and families as the rightful stewards of the lands on which we live here in our beautiful Bay Area. Our library is committed to uplifting the names of these lands and community members from which these nations with whom we live together. We encourage you to learn more about first-person culture and land rights, and we'll put a link into the chat box to a great reading and resource list. On Saturday at 2 p.m., we are celebrating the life and legacy of Janice Merikitani. And so please come out for that. All the poets, the lineup is stunning, poet laureates past and present. And some reading campaigns we have coming up. Total SF on August 24th. We're talking about the end of the Golden Gate book with Daniel Handler and Gary Kamaya. And I don't know if many of you know, but San Francisco Public Library has a reading campaign called On the Same Page. This is where we encourage all of SF to read the same book. And we are reading Jacqueline Woodson, Red at the Bone. And we will have a book club on it. So check out our calendar. And Jacqueline Woodson was just in our virtual library yesterday. And you should go find her on our YouTube channel because it was such a great convo. August 18th, the Chronicles film critic, long-standing film critic. He's been the film critic since the 80s. And he has his first book out in 10 years from Heyday Books called Dream State, California in the Movies. Oh, one of my favorite human beings in the whole world, Shanta Nimbark Sharoff, who is huge in the food movement here in our Bay Area. And she was part of the People's Food System. And she's also the co-owner and co-founder of Other Avenues. And some other great stuff. I'm going to breeze through these. We have still a lot of stuff happening for Summer Stride, so you should come out. And today I want to introduce you to Jessica Lee, the Education Program Director at the Native Plant Nursery. And she works for the Golden Gate National Park Conservatory. And we are so excited for the tour, Jessica. And I'm going to turn it over to you. Everyone, welcome, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're super excited to be a part of this last nature boost of the summer and excited for the future nature boosts to come. So hello, good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Jessica Lee. I'm the Education Programs Manager at the Native Plant Nurseries in the Golden Gate National Parks, working with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm really excited to share about the Presidio Native Plant Nursery and the work that we do here at the nursery. But before we get started, thank you, SFPO, for that lovely land acknowledgement. I also want to acknowledge kind of like the relationship that as native plant nurseries, like with this land, and acknowledging that, again, like these lands are the unceded lands of the Ramaytush Ohlone, you know, this land that we work in, breathe in, recreate in, like live in, used to be called Yalamu here. And that was its original name, Yalama, before it became known as San Francisco as we know it today. So just want to acknowledge like the intimate relationship with land and intentional stewardship that has been practiced on this land for thousands of years by the Ramaytush Ohlone, which was disrupted in the 1800s when Western settlers came onto this land and changed the relationship with people and land since then. So now, we are going through another change in these national park lands and trying to bring back those relationships between animals, plants, and people, and just want to honor like the Ramaytush Ohlone for like that stewardship, and really want to honor the current Native folks who are here on this land, who are thriving, connecting, and doing so much for their communities, and encourage folks to look into the actions that Indigenous communities are calling for and forwarding here. So I'll turn my camera around really quick just so you can see, we can see the Presidio Native Plant Nursery kind of in type here. And so since we might have folks of all ages here who might not know what a plant nursery is, I like to kind of go through it backwards. So starting from nursery, what might people think when you hear the word nursery? For example, some people, see the word nurse and think of like hospitals or places where people are taken care of, or maybe like nursery rhymes, like you think of daycares and where we send our little ones to be taken care of. So together at the plant nursery, we're a place we take care of and grow plants, primarily younger plants. And the plants that we're growing and taking care of are native plants. So these are plants that have been growing in the San Francisco Bay Area for thousands of years, and with whom the Ramaytush Ohlone have had a much longer and intimate relationship. And then we are in the Presidio Park. So altogether, we're the Presidio Native Plant Nursery, where we grow and take care of native plants for restoration projects throughout the Golden Gate National Parks. So as a caveat, we are not a commercial nursery. The plants that we grow are all for various restoration projects. So happy to walk you through how that works. So follow me on this beautiful gray San Francisco summer day, and we'll stop by our kind of first structure, since many plants that we grow start off as seeds. So I'll take everyone to see our seed lab first. So walking this way, we also have a volunteer group here who is doing some important work with us, and we'll might have a chance to talk to them some more later. So walking in this way, we're coming into our seed lab, and I'll flip the camera around and walk slowly so you can kind of take a peek at our seed lab. So let me try to get somewhere where the light's a little better. So feel free in the chat if you just kind of want to put in what are some things you noticed in here in a seed lab, in our seed lab? Like how is it similar or different to kind of what your idea of a lab is? So again, as I mentioned, most plants start off as seeds, and most of the seeds used in our nursery operations are actually collected from plants growing in San Francisco. We have folks whose jobs are seed collectors. If that sounds something really interesting to you, yes, that is a job, and it's super fun. You go out and hike around our parklands and San Francisco lands to collect seeds from the plants, and then we bring them back here to get treated. So we do collect from the land, since we want to use that genetic material, that DNA of those plants that are in the wild, so kind of continue growing plants for the parklands. And it's project requests each year that inform us on how much seed we need and what species we should collect. And so when we do go out to collect, in order to support the wildlife and maintain sustainable practices and the genetic diversity, we generally don't collect more than like 5% of the seeds from any location, just so that those natural processes can still continue on the parklands. After we collect them, we bring them back here, because in order to grow those healthy plants and prevent the seeds from rotting, we clean the seeds in our seed lab. So there can be some kind of more simple cleaning, including like here, you can see we have this seed, Ergonium latifolium. And then when we go out to collect the seed, it's really hard to collect it seed by seed. It's so small and it's not super efficient. So often our seed collectors will go ahead and kind of take the whole inflorescence, or like kind of the whole part of the plant that holds all the seed, which might include, some part of the stems or things like that. So part of the cleaning can include just kind of like separating the seed from the rest of the plant material. And here you can see we have these sieves, very gold rush era, and we use it very similarly, where you kind of shake and rub the seed into, and the small seed will fall through these little holes to the bottom, while all the rest of the plant material stays on top. So that's kind of one of the simple ways that we do, more simpler processes in terms of seed cleaning. We also do different seed treatments too. So for example, seeds, after they're cleaned, seeds can be put into dry storage in the refrigerator. We have these large refrigerators. Sometimes they're put into cold or wet stratification, or we put the seeds into, like we put the seeds together in a little layer of sand or peat or soil so they can start germinating. Or sometimes seeds are just sown as soon as they're collected. So the different treatment of seeds depends on the different species. And what that treatment is that we are like kind of copying natural processes that happen in nature. So there's something that seeds have, like have called dormancy. I'll turn around my camera so you can you can have a face to the voice. So seeds have something called dormancy. It's a little bit like hibernation. Many commercial seeds actually have had dormancy kind of bred out of them. But since we are collecting seeds from the parklands, these seeds still have dormancy. It's a little bit like hibernation. It's either kind of like a physical or chemical dormancy that prevents the seed from germinating until it is the right time, until it is like a good time for seedling survival. So for example, let's say a seed has, like some seeds, the way that they kind of wake up or like from that dormancy is kind of experiencing winter. So sometimes we put the seeds into kind of a cold or wet stratification in our fridges because it kind of mimics a winter in San Francisco. And that's kind of what gets the seed to wake up, so that when we take it out and get it ready to germinate, it thinks that it's been through a winter and that it's springtime and ready to grow. So it's kind of like mimicking processes in nature and kind of tricking the seed to wake up from its dormancy. So some of the other ways that we sometimes treat seeds for their different dormancies, depending on their species, is we have these sandpaper covered blocks here. So what do you think this is mimicking in nature? Feel free to put it in the chat. Well, what do you think this is mimicking in our San Francisco lands? So yeah, so some of the seeds, especially our sand dune species, the seeds, they don't start germinating and they don't kind of wake up from their dormancy until they've been sufficiently kind of scratched up by the sand that naturally occurs with the wind blowing along the beaches and the sand blowing over these seeds. So for some of the species, you bring them back here, we kind of scratch their seed coat with these sandpaper blocks. And once they're scratched enough, that's kind of what wakes up the seed and gets it ready to germinate. Another treatment we have going on here is that's a little more unique, is we have, it's not a very pretty sight, but this is a blue witch nightshade. It is in the same family as the tomato family, the nightshade family. And so for any of our gardeners who are watching and might know that that one of the ways to treat tomato seeds and get them ready to germinate is kind of they go through a fermentation process that kind of copies the way that the fruit around the seed might rot and ferment in nature. So we have this going on here. And some of the other kind of more unique ways that we might kind of, depending on the species, that we might wake them up out of dormancy and treat them is, some of them we might actually put them in like coffee, give them a coffee treatment. What do you think that copies and mimics in nature? It mimics kind of like going through the digestive tract of an animal. For some seeds, that's what kind of wakes them up from dormancy, gets them ready to germinate. That kind of acid. And then for others, some of them, what wakes them up from dormancy is fires. For a long time, wildfires were a natural part and as well as controlled fires that were practiced by the indigenous folks here were a part of the many plants processes. So for some plants, the seeds, we use smoke to, we used to set them on fire. Now we kind of use more like a process of like using smoke to wake the seeds up to get them ready to germinate. But now that we've kind of talked about seeds, I'm sure y'all are ready to see the seeds actually start growing into plants. So follow me, we're gonna go into some of our growing structures. So we'll turn left this way into our atrium. And we'll head into our mist house, where we have our youngest plants that are just growing from seed. But before we can go in, we actually have to do something really important. So just as nowadays with COVID, there's practices that we do to keep each other safe, such as, also are very careful with pathogens or germs, plant pathogens that can get our plants sick. And one of those pathogens that is really impacting a lot of California native plant communities is Phytophthora. Try to say that 3 times fast. Phytophthora. So Phytophthora is a water mold, and it is often travels, in fact, on kind of like the water and mud and dirt that gets on our shoes. So just to make sure we're not bringing any pathogens into any of our growing areas, I'm first gonna kind of use this scratchy thing to take off the dirt off my shoes. I'm gonna open up. And then we have these foot baths that's filled with a solution that kind of sanitizes the bottom of our shoes. So I'm gonna step on it. And with that, there's no Phytophthora coming in, and welcome to the mist house.
Hi, Jessica. Your
Yes.
video is frozen or something.
Oh no.
Or pause. We just see the foot scratcher.
Okay, let me see if I restart the video. How's that?
Still just a foot scratcher. Oh. Uh-oh. You still with us, Lisa? I mean, Jessica?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I turned off the video for a little bit.
Let's see if it comes
and then
back.
Turned it back on.
Let's see, because you're coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, that's so strange. Sorry about that, viewers. I will say something about the nurseries, that is our signal is not there. We have some days that are better than others, I'll say, when it comes to our signal and Wi-Fi here.
Are you still in the mist nursery?
Yes, still in the mist house.
Maybe we have to step out of there. Did you turn your camera back on?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not seeing anything.
Here, let me.
Oh, I see some wheelbarrows.
Okay, so the dead spot is the mist house. Gotcha.
The mist house.
So I'll kind of show it from here. Hopefully folks can see. Let's see, maybe can folks still see this?
Muted. We're seeing some tables.
Okay, great, awesome. So I'm sorry we can't get a closer look at the mist house, but here it is. So once the seeds are treated, the small seeds, they go into a flat filled with like a peat moss type mix. And every flat, excuse me, can contain more than 500 seedlings. Big seeds like acorns are sown directly into pots filled with soil, usually one at a time. But you'll see, those big flats, those are kind of our smaller seeds go in there, and you see some seeds we have sown directly into their individual pots. I don't know if you can see, but you might see some colored tags in there. So those tags, they help us keep records and understand like when they were planted, what the species is, and sometimes like the information to help distinguish soil or genetic variability. So this mist house it kind of provides the perfect environment for the seedlings. It has shade and humidity, and each bench has its own irrigation system to keep flats and pots nice and moist, which is what they really need at this stage. So the downside is that this moist environment, while really good for seeds and seedlings, it's also a perfect condition for fungus gnats. So you might see these yellow sticky traps. So we use those to try to capture the fungus gnats. And then another way to keep insect pests away is like we add sand on top of the flats. So you might see from here, like you'll see kind of like lighter color on top on the flats. So that's sand that also helps keep insect pests away. So I'll try to get a nice pan around. So yeah, so this is our mist house where we try to give our seedlings kind of like the healthiest and supportive start to their plant lives. Awesome. So I'll close this and then we'll step into the greenhouse. This is also Jackie, one of our amazing nursery technicians. Hello, who's filling up with some of our amazing soil. We actually have a kind of like a tailored soil mix that we create to best support our plants. What we like to say is like a lot of native San Francisco native plants, they don't like their feet wet. If their feet wet, in other words, they don't like their roots to stay wet super long. So the soil that we mix, we make sure encourages maximum drainage so that it's not kind of super, so the roots don't stay super soggy. All right, so here's the greenhouse. I'm going to test and see. Let me know if the video goes off, but I'm going to see so folks can get a closer look at some plants in the greenhouse. Here, because I just have a foot bath, so I'm spraying my shoes with a spray bottle instead. Is the video still working?
It is not. It's a little jolty, and your voice is going out.
Okay. How is this?
Those plants, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay. I'm sorry, folks. So I think these are the plants who are not wanting to be not wanting to have close-ups today.
They're shy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're messing with the signal, so so we don't get super close up to them. But yes, here's our greenhouse. So you'll see it's kind of attached to the mist house through that door. And this is the second step for many plants. So after the seedlings grow, they're kind of transplanted into individual pots, like you see here. And they're moved here, especially in the summer months, when it's kind of like a big growing season and transplanting season. So plants in this area, they receive extra detailed care. You can see this is like a more controlled environment in here where we can monitor them closely and perform any needed treatments. For example, with the toyon, there's been a lot of various different insects and things going on there. So this helps us keep it more in a controlled environment so we can do some of those treatments for the toyon. Yeah, so this is a greenhouse. And so I'll close this back up just so we can keep the environment in there nice and warm. And we're going to take a little pause and kind of like our growing structures. So I can kind of show some of the other important spaces we have here at the nursery. So back here in this building, this is our habitarium, and it's kind of our gathering space we have, because not only do we work with plants, but something we're very passionate about is also working with people in connection with nature and plants. So we do, so during the school year, we do host school groups, like where students can learn about plants and the environment. While we mainly serve elementary school aged classes, we also have like pre-COVID, we had year-round service learning programs. Unfortunately, we do have more limited capacity this coming school year, but excited to say that we are transitioning back to trying out some in-person programs here again. So if any teachers are interested, you're welcome to email nurseriesed@parksconservancy.org. And then in addition to education programs, we also host volunteer programs, which you saw some of those volunteers earlier in the tour. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that volunteer program in depth when we head over there. But as a heads up, just also want to say that things are also a little up in the air in terms of volunteer programs. So for the latest updates, you can check out our volunteer page on the Parks Conservancy website. Or you can also contact volunteers at parksconservancy.org for most up-to-date information. So coming back over here on this large building, so we call this building the Pot Palace, or the Palace of Fine Pots. So as you might have seen, we grow a lot of plants, which means we use a lot of pots. And so this is where dirty pots are dropped off. You can see on this side, these are all dirty pots over here. This is where they're dropped off for reuse after the plants have been planted out. And we have students and volunteers kind of helped clean them. I also want to highlight an amazing partnership we've had with the San Francisco Conservation Corps, who's been helping us out with a lot of the nurseries work that's been going on, especially while our volunteer programs were much more had to be cut during at the height of the pandemic. And so they've been helping us with all kinds of tasks like transplanting, like seed cleaning, and then especially kind of the pot washing and treatment. So thank you, SFCC, for all your support. Couldn't do it without them. Definitely check them out. They're a great group. And then so like this is where they're kind of clean, where we use power washers to get the dirt off. Again, we want to make sure we're not bringing back Phytophthora with these pots. So we clean the dirt off of them as best as we can. And behind this curtain, that is actually where we have our heat treated pots. So that is kind of the final stage to make sure that they are pathogen free. So how exactly do we heat treat these pots that we have? I'll show you, and I'll also say kind of as a note of like, we're really thankful for all the work that goes into helping us reuse these pots as well. They are plastic pots, and so I know for some nurseries who don't have that support in terms of volunteers or groups like San Francisco Conservation Corps, they use the pots once and have to just get new ones because they don't have that time or staffing to clean and reuse the pots. Because we want to use sanitary and clean pots when growing plants. So really thankful for folks who can help us kind of lessen our kind of plastic footprint a little bit so that we can reuse those pots. So over here, kind of under wraps over here, that is our steamer. And so that steamer is what we use to kind of heat treat not only our pots, but also our soil. So we can make sure that our soil is pathogen free as well. So as you can see, it's kind of a whole operation going on here. It's very much about kind of best practices to make sure that we're kind of creating the kind of like healthiest supportive environment for our plants to grow in. So yeah, under that cover is a large boiler on wheels and heats water from the hose to create the steam. And so we can control how much fresh air is mixed with the steam in order to achieve a certain temperature. So it's usually between 140 and 180 degrees. And then that steam, and so we use that steam to kind of help sanitize our pots and soil. Awesome. So over here we have our propagation shed, and that's where we have a lot of the work done with our plants. So that's where we have a lot of transplanting going on, things like seed cleaning and other tasks. So we have this setup going on over here. So you can see some pots with soil, filled soil that are ready to get transplanted into. We have these steel top tables that are really easy to sanitize again, so we can make sure we're keeping our plants healthy and pathogen free. And over here we have some volunteer extraordinaires who are helping us clean seed. And we also have our senior manager here next. Yeah, so at the end during Q&A, have any kind of really technical questions or have questions about like the volunteer experience, we can definitely check in with them. But right now, as I mentioned, some of that seed cleaning work that has to be done. So they're doing kind of some of that more involved ones. For example, you can see here, there's some folks like literally kind of taking the seed out of the seed pods and separating the pods from the seeds. We also have some folks kind of separating the seeds from these kind of grass species over here. Yeah, so like really fun if you're really into kind of like detailed, small detail, fine motor skills kind of tasks. Awesome. So now kind of to our last growing structure over here. This is kind of the last step that our plants go to before they are planted out into the parklands. This is our shade house. You can see it is by far our largest structure. It has 42 tables or benches in here of plants. So, and each bench can hold more than 2,000 individual plants. We are definitely pretty full right now as well, because there are some big projects we are planting for. Folks might have heard about the new tunnel tops site in the Presidio. A lot of these plants are being grown for tunnel tops. So again, before I go in, I'm scratching my shoes, making sure they're nice and clean by using this foot bath, and then stepping in. So here you can see the plants. If I were to kind of use an analogy, like the mist house is kind of like plant elementary school, where they're getting all they need to kind of get a healthy start to life. The greenhouse is plant middle school, where we can still kind of give them a more controlled, supportive environment, but they're definitely getting bigger. Shade house, I kind of think of as a plant high school, where we're kind of giving them still like a safe environment, but also to kind of grow a little bit more independent. So as you can see, the structure looks pretty different. We use a 30% shade cloth here rather than kind of physical walls like we do in the mist house and the greenhouse. So that still allows things to come in like more sun, wind, rain, still more of the elements while still kind of creating like a safe barrier for the plants, just so that they can get more used to the spaces they'll be planted to. So that way they're kind of growing a little more resilient, so that when they're planted out, they have a higher success of surviving once they're planted out, since they live pretty cushy lives as the plants when they're in the mist house and greenhouse. So again, we have so many plants and species to care for in here. So definitely plants in the shade house require the most attention. So they need pruning, watering, fertilizing, weeding, and much more. And around the fall season, after the first few rains, that's when the plants usually kind of leave the nursery and are planted in the park at specific restoration sites. So as I mentioned before, we can get a closer look at some of these tags here. So here we have some classic California poppy. And so here are the tags we have. If it can focus, you can do it. Technology, I believe in you. There you go. So you can see we have the scientific name at the top, and then you'll see a series of like numbers and letters in the middle. So that's the propagule code, or a kind of like a barcode number that follows a set of plants all the way from the seed or when the cutting is first collected. So the first two numbers, you can see this one says 18P. So 18, that's the year that the seed was collected. So this seed was collected in 2018. And so the letter is the nursery name. So we have three main nursery sites. We have Presidio, Marin Headlands, and Fort Funston. So that P means that it was collected by Presidio Nursery folks. And then the next set of three numbers is the sequential kind of identity given to each new species collected in that year by that nursery. So in other words, this says 23. So this is the 23rd species that was collected for that year. And then you'll see a letter, and it says, and so that indicates whether it's grown from seed, cutting, or something else. And then the final number says how many times that batch of seed has been used. So you'll see S, so that means that was grown from seed. And it is the 6th time that plants have been grown from the seed. So we have that record that for each of our plants, so we can have all that information there. And you'll see an S followed by a date. So that's the sown date. So this seed was sown December 5th, 2020. And then the last time it was transplanted was December 15th, 2020. So these have been in here for about 8 months. So it's like, yeah, so again, here we have many different kind of plants being grown here. I wish, like, these are our nurseries. While we don't have kind of the drop-in volunteer programs that we did pre-pandemic. This is in a national park, so this is accessible to the public. So if folks are curious and kind of just want to take a peek at these plants, you're welcome to kind of come on by, see if any staff are around, or just kind of walk around on the outside of the shade house and kind of see what plants we have growing over here. Awesome. So I'm happy to continue kind of showing some of the plants we're growing in here, and then as well as opening it up to any questions that might have come up in the chat.
This is so cool, Jessica. Thank you for showing us around. My question is, like, what kind of education did you have to get, Jessica, to be so knowledgeable about this? Are you a scientist?
Oh, great question. So I do not come from a science or environmental science background. As the education program manager, I definitely came through more of the education route. So I went to school for elementary school teaching. And then before kind of falling into environmental education, I didn't even know environmental education was a thing when I was in school. So definitely, I think, it's like I've been really fortunate to find myself here, and I all this kind of plant knowledge that I have was definitely learned on the job by some amazing colleagues who definitely have either more of that kind of technical background, or who also learned hands-on, like years of nurseries experience.
Yeah, it seems very scientific. That's great that the public can stop by. I love that. And how many? There's just one mist house, and one.
Yes, so we have one mist house, one greenhouse, and then this shade house here. Sometimes, there are some times where maybe it's like, for example, at the Presidio Nursery, just tunnel tops is such a huge project that, we might not have space for all the plants. So sometimes that's when our other nursery sites can support in kind of providing some extra space. So some of our tunnel tops, or some of plants are at our Marin Headlands nursery right now as well. But we have those 3 nursery sites mainly, so they kind of grow mainly for the projects for the parklands kind of in that area. So our Marin Headlands nursery grows mostly for Marin and North Bay park projects, Presidio for mainly Presidio and like San Francisco sites. And then Fort Funston grows also as well for some San Francisco sites, and then for our kind of like San Mateo sites as well. So that's generally how the plants and the projects are divided between our nursery sites.
Interesting. We have a question. I'm done with my questions now. How about our audience? What water sources do you use for the plants?
Oh, great question. So we do, as you can see, we have, let me turn this camera around. We do have sprinklers and hoses everywhere. But yeah, we're connected to kind of the water system in the Presidio Park. And happy to check in with Annette, who might have kind of more exact questions on that, or answer to that question. But yes, definitely water is definitely a resource that we use a lot of to kind of water our plants. So that's definitely been kind of a conversation as well of like the water usage that we take up, knowing that it's a drought year, while also trying to keep our plants alive and cared for. So yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, how many different plants?
Sorry. I was like, Annette, do you have
Is she there?
Yes. Do you have
Annette.
That answer to like where our water source is?
Oh yeah. So a lot of the we have our own water source, which is the Lobo.
Oh, sorry. Let me take out the mic. Okay. Hi.
Better.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So a lot of the year, the Presidio has its own water source, which is the Lobos Creek, which is right between the Presidio and the Richmond neighborhood in San Francisco. But sometimes during the summer, actually, I think almost every year during the summer, that creek runs dry and we switch over and start to have the same water as the rest of San Francisco. So we tap into Hetch Hetchy just as everybody else does at that.
Thank you, Annette. That's really interesting about the creek. So next question is, how many different plants do you have in the nursery?
How many different plants do we have at the nursery right now?
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So we grow, there's about 400 species of native plants in the Presidio. And usually on any given year, we grow about 150 different species. So within that 400 total, we'll grow about 150, just depending on what's requested for that year.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yes, I am. What are some good native plants for SF folks to grow at home if they don't really have a green thumb?
Ooh, crowdsourcing.
Yes.
Good. You don't have a green thumb. What are some easy native? Oh yeah, California poppies. They do love to grow kind of anywhere. They actually love to be neglected, so that's a good one. Strawberries. We do have a lot of strawberries that are native, and those will take over, and they can also be grown in pots. I'm thinking about what can be grown like on a balcony or something. We also have some native succulents that you can look up that are pretty good. Makes it easy.
That's the kind of plants I grow, the kind you can neglect.
Yes.
That is fascinating. So I recall there being a native plant sale. Is that something you do?
That is not through us. I think that you might be thinking about the Golden Gate Park. That's just not, that's a city-run park versus ours is the federal property. So we don't have plant sales, unfortunately.
Okay, here comes another question. Do you stress plants with wind, like a hair dryer, to get them used to being in the wind?
Ooh, good question. I wonder if you can see how windy it is here now. Yeah, I swear it's been windy.
Yeah.
So we grow the plants in the shade house because the wind can just go straight through there. So the shade cloth does provide some protection from the wind, but for the most part, the plants have to feel the wind there. Same with the rain and sun. The shade house just makes it a little bit less intense for the growing plants, but everything is done naturally.
Cool. That's a great question. Thank you, audience. All right. Do we have any final questions for our friends here at the Native Plant Nursery? Thank you for this tour. It's been so exciting to see and to see our friends there doing some work there.
Yes, thank you. This was super, super fun and glad we could be a part of the SFPL Nature Boost summer series.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just check the YouTube side, make sure there's no more questions. Everyone in our YouTube land, good? Questions? Okay. Jessica, Education Coordinator, thank you so much for being here today and taking us on this tour. And we will look forward to our next event that we can do with our partners. And I'll give you a hint, it's in October and it contains a very cute animal. So look for our sfpl.org/events. And we want to thank all of our partners at NPS, the Golden Gate National Park Conservatory, and the Presidio Trust for joining us this summer And Jessica, thank you. Have a lovely weekend. And SFPL community, we love you and we'll see you out in nature.
Yes,
Bye,
thank you so
everybody.
much. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.